this week, I tell you, we got a dynamite program for you. With me in the studio is Sharon, and I'm going to ask Sharon to say a quick hello and how you're doing to the audience.
Hi, I'm doing very well today, thank you.
Great. And Sharon's going to tell us her story through addiction, through difficulties, and where she is right now. We will also be giving good advice of those who may be struggling with addiction now, how you can get the help that you need to get. And so let's get into our program this evening. We don't have a lot of time, but we do want to make the best of our time. And so, Sharon, again, I say welcome.
Thank you.
To a religious affair, and people listening all over the world. Last week we had several from South Africa and Paris, and of course our host from the host country here in London. So tell us, Sharon, well, let me just tell the listeners how I met you. Okay. And then they will get that. Mm-hmm. How I met Sharon, we were doing a program at the Hanworth Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it was on drug awareness that Sabbath, and one of the young ladies, Angela, had invited Sharon to come speak. Mm-hmm. And after hearing Sharon's testimony, I was like, whoa, dynamite. It made me get converted all over again. And I was the preacher for the day. Aside from that, we asked her to come again to a revival I was doing in Tottenham. That's right. At the Tottenham church there in West Green Road, Tottenham. And she came, and I'm telling you, man, she took the night. You know, I didn't even say another word. She done took the night. A couple hundred people are just hollering and shouting and praising God. And when we're thinking about a program on addiction, Sharon, you came straight to mind because I feel that you have a story that would help a lot of people out there. So let's start at the beginning. Right. Where does it start for you? What kind of family makeup did you have? What age did you start using and that kind of stuff? My kind of background, I'm from a mixed race background, white mother, black father. So for me, growing up, I always felt different. That was one of the things for me, I always felt different. I had a very structured routine with my mother, well clothed, well fed. The only thing that was missing was the emotional affection. So there was no love, no family interaction, or mum engaging with us. You know, it was just strictly routine. Yeah. And that was due to her upbringing, which was very strict. Sure. You know, but at the time I didn't realise that. You know, I was one of those children who didn't like to be told what to do. Yeah. So I got to a certain age where I wanted to go out and play with my friends, and I wanted to be out until later than 6 o'clock. Sure. My mother wasn't having it. Right. You know, so I'd stay out, I'd come back, you know, I'd get beaten, you know. You mean proper beat? Yeah, I'd get beaten with a bell, I'd get beaten with a stick. I was about to say hallelujah, but that's probably not the thing to say. No, I don't think so. You know, and it got to the stage where it didn't bother me no more. Yeah. I'd stay out and think, oh, I'm only going to get a beating when I get in. Sure. But then what happened was I went out with my dad once when I was 9, and he went to, my dad was an alcoholic. Okay. So it's a completely different lifestyle. And he took me out, and he gave me whiskey. Wow. And I can remember being 9 years old. Wow. And I can remember being underneath a table, and they had these little whiskey glasses, and I remember coming back up from the table and knocking back this whiskey. And I got drunk at 9. Wow. And from that day that I can remember, I always wanted to go back out with my dad again. Yes. You know, and I'd always sip. So when I got to around, let's say, 12, I really got a taste for alcohol. Yeah. I'd really got a taste for alcohol. And I'd previously tried solvents like Tipex thinner. Wow, yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you about the Tipex thinner. I was in secondary school, and one of my friends introduced it to me. And I saw her take some, and then she literally just went flat down, face first onto the concrete. Yeah. You know. And I thought, I want some of that. Yes. I want some of that. You actually said you want something that's going to make you fall like that. Because I actually believed that wouldn't happen to me. Okay. I would not have fallen. Like that. And I didn't. I didn't fall, you see. So I thought there was something wrong with her, and that I was strong enough that I could manage this. Can I stick a pin there? And I want to speak to the parents out there that 30% of kids that become addicts start with things that are legal. Yes. So solvents, Tipex,
glue,
petrol,
aerosols.
aerosols, anything with a vapor. And a lot of them are under the sink in our homes. A lot of them are in schools. And so it's not a case of going out and finding things.
No.
Things are right there in home. Anyway, go ahead.
So I got through that and still having problems at home with my mum. So I decided to go and live with my dad. And I ran away. I went to live with my dad. And
so you ran away from mom?
I ran away from mum.
Found dad?
Went to dad and said to him, Dad, I'm staying here. You know, and he was like, okay.
How old were you?
I was 12 at
Okay.
the time. And the house wasn't clean. It wasn't kept. There was no food. You know, Dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, so from a very young age, I learnt to steal, you know, to hustle money, to rob. You know, when my dad's friends were drunk, you know, I'd be the one in the pockets.
Yeah.
You know, taking money to get more special brew, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic.
What a life.
What a life, you know. We've got no money, but it's okay, Dad. I'll sort it out.
Yeah.
And that carried on for some time until me and my father had an argument.
Okay.
And he kind of scared me. You know, he pulled a knife out on me.
Wow.
And then I started to pick up milk bottles from the street and throw these milk bottles. And I just thought at that point that if I go back with him, because I'd seen him, you know, violent and hurt people, you know. I was the 12-year-old child that used to watch the violence and the beatings in the house and have to wipe the blood up. I picked up a piece of a finger at one time,
Wow.
being 12 years old. And, you know, as that, you know, it was like, it was the norm for me. It was something we do. Dad fights, he stabs someone, or he does that, and I've got to clean it up, you know, and lie to the police when and if they come. So that was that kind of situation, you know, growing up. And then I had an argument with my dad, like I said. I got very scared, and I thought, going back to mum's.
Okay.
So I went back to mum's.
And did mum take you back?
She took me back, but she
Okay.
didn't really want me back.
Sure.
But she took me back, I think, to spite my dad.
Okay.
Because now he hasn't got her. That didn't last for long.
Sure.
That lasted a couple of months. And I ended up leaving home, going to stay with a family friend, and then my mum signed me into a children's home at the age of 13.
Okay.
And my life escalated from there.
So you were in a children's home at the age of 13.
13.
You'd already started drinking
I was a fully blown alcoholic by then.
at that time. 13.
Yeah, I was drinking special brew and whiskey basically every single day.
Okay. Okay. Were you at school?
No,
Okay.
because what happened was the secondary school that I started when I was 12, I was a bully.
Okay.
You know, I was beaten at home, I went to school, I beat other
Yeah,
children,
sure.
basically.
Sure.
And I started then, because it sounds really crazy, but the children were easy to fight.
Yeah.
So I started on the male teachers. So I'd fight the male teachers.
Have mercy.
And they kicked me out of my mainstream secondary school, and they put me into a school for dysfunctional children.
Wow.
And there was this tall black guy in there, and I remember he was always shouting at his pupils. And I remember myself one day thinking, he can't shout at me like that.
Yeah.
I'm not tolerating that.
Yeah.
And I went into his class and I started banging on his speaker boxes. Anyway, he pushed me out.
What?
And then I'd done something very awful. You know, I'm 13 years old, and I ended up hitting him back, and then we were fighting in the corridor.
You and this teacher?
Me and his teacher, we were fighting in the corridor, and then they threw me out of that school when I was 13.
Gracious.
And at that point, that was the last stage.
Yeah.
If that school threw you out, nobody was going to educate
Okay.
you. So I was basically out there in a children's home, falling out with my dad, falling out with my mum. I depended on the alcoholics that I knew and the older people that were like puffing weed to basically help me and look after me, because I refused to go back to the children's home. So I was basically on the street, sleeping in people's houses. I've slept in blocks of flats on the concrete, in the snow. I've been hungry and I've been homeless basically at the age of 13. However, it was intentionally homeless because I did have a children's home to go to.
Sure, sure.
But I refused to go there. You know.
So now, the alcoholism, did that spiral into other types of addiction?
It did, because when I got to about 13, you know, I was doing things like going halves, like £2.50, £2.50, like a £5 draw of weed, you know. But I didn't really take to the weed that well, because I wasn't alert, you know. And it didn't give me the confidence that the alcohol gave me. The alcohol made me into this kind of strong, kind of feisty woman that nobody could mess with, basically. And the weed didn't do that for me. So I continued drinking, you know. I'm getting older now, I'm getting into my teens. I start having children. I had my first son he was born 4 days before my 17th birthday.
Wow.
So I had my first son at 16. He's now 26 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I found I was still drinking, but I actually I kind of managed it. You know, where I'd have a couple of bottles of wine. I wasn't drinking as heavy as I was when I was younger, when I had my first son. I'd have a bottle of wine occasionally. And then basically I got to around 19. By this time I'd had my twins. So I have 3 children and I'm now 19.
And you're 19?
I'm 19 and I had 3 children. I had my boy and girl twins and they are now 24 today.
Okay.
And my neighbours upstairs where I used to live were crack cocaine addicts. And one day she came down and she goes, Sharon, you know, try this crack, it's really great, you know. So I said, okay, so I've tried this crack and didn't feel nothing.
Wow.
Didn't feel nothing. I say to this day now, she didn't put enough on the pipe. That's basically what it boils down to, you know. Anyway, she must have invited me up again, and I smoked this crack, and I felt this almighty hit.
Wow.
It blew me away.
Really?
I couldn't speak. I felt like I was dribbling.
Wow.
I couldn't move.
Wow.
Yeah, but I just felt like I was not in my body.
Wow.
This was a hit that I'd never had before, but I wanted more of.
Wow.
And I can remember I stayed up there for half of the day, you know, smoking crack cocaine. And then it kind of escalated where what I would then do is I would knock her to go in halves and get me something, you know. These times I couldn't even build my own pipe, you know. And within...
Now you had your children at this time?
I had 3 of them at the time.
Wow.
You know. Within, I'd say, a few months, I then met a boyfriend who was smoking crack. And within a couple of months, it was amazing how my circle of friends changed. So I had a circle of friends that would just puff from time to time and have a drink, to where my house was full of everyone smoking crack. Every room there was crack, apart from the children's room. You know. And I started off where I think to myself, telling people, well, don't come round till I put the kids to bed. You know, and I managed that for a short period of time. But if someone's coming to my house and they've got a big lump of crack at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not turning you away. It's like, come in. So I'd be in the kitchen. I spent a lot of my time when my children were growing up in my kitchen, just checking every now and again. Not checking the kids, checking because I think someone's coming because I'm so paranoid. You know?
Before you go further, let's talk about that whole paranoia thing, of where you're just always looking out. Someone's coming, someone knows, someone... You know, tell us a bit about that.
It got worse. Obviously, the more you smoke, the more I smoked, it got worse, where I actually suffered with psychosis. And I'm going to tell you an experience that I had. And because I've got 6 children now, So with baby number 6, I'm smoking crack cocaine still. And I used to get this feeling that spiders were on me. You know, I'd see them crawling, you know, and I'd brush them off. And then one day, I'm sitting at my kitchen table, smoking crack all day, you know, not even thinking about where the kids are or is there dinner in the oven, nothing like that. All I'm thinking about is this hit. And basically, I thought that I felt one of the spiders run up inside my vagina. And then my belly started to move. And I was convinced that these spiders had gone up inside me and they had laid babies and I was in big trouble.
What?
But the fact of the matter, Ray, it was my baby kicking.
Wow.
But at that point, I didn't feel that. The whole paranoia thing, you know,
It's amazing.
It's, you know, the way it got me, where I even forgot that I was pregnant. And the paranoia thing is like, I lived up high, and I used to be convinced that people are coming through the windows.
Yeah.
Now, when I tell you people are coming through my windows, they're coming through my windows for me. And they're coming with machetes, they're coming with axe, and they're coming, and these people are coming to get me. There was an occasion where my previous house where I lived with the paranoia, I lived on the ground floor, so I had bay windows, and I had a basement. That was the scariest property I ever had.
Wow.
I'm in the basement. People have got easy access to me. This is how my mind is thinking. So I had the bay windows, and I used to peep through the curtains all the time, peeping. So then I got paranoid about that, because I thought, these people are going to see the curtains moving outside. So what I'd done was, I had this fantastic plan. So I took a cigarette and I burnt a hole through it. So I'd just be there, like that, you know. But the paranoia, the feeling, you know, I kind of laugh about it a bit today, but the feeling, yeah, is total fear.
Yeah.
I'm fearing for my life. So I'm basically taking a drug, one after the other, yeah, to be scared for my life. I know from the time I've got that in my hand, I know exactly what's going to happen. But what I do is, this is the insanity part, is that I do the same thing and I expect different results. And this result that I always get is paranoia. So I've done things like, I've changed the drink, I've changed the dealers, you know, I've changed the paraphernalia that I use.
Wow.
Not acknowledging that the problem is me.
What is the the whole paranoia thing has just got me. But what is the how can I put it? The insanity. I mean, how far does that drive you? Because some people say they steal from their parents, they attack people, they rob stores, they do all that. I mean, where did it take you?
I was close with my insanity. I was actually, I came this close to wanting to stab my own sister. Because I was convinced that she'd planted crack cocaine in my house. I was convinced that she was going to call social services for me, and I was convinced that she was just evil. That she was just evil. You know, and I had the knife on me, because when I used to smoke crack, and people that know me, even, you know, that smoked with me, and people that didn't smoke with me, would know that before I even hit that pipe, I've got the biggest knife out the kitchen drawer, and I've got them hidden all over. So if I'm in one room and I can't get hold of that knife, I've got the next one. You wouldn't find no knives in my kitchen drawer. They'd be hid. I'd have them down my socks, in my back. I've nearly stabbed myself. You know, and it's that kind of fear and paranoia, and I kept doing that for, you know, I smoked crack cocaine for 14 years. And I was an alcoholic for 21 years.
Wow.
You know.
Stick a pin there. You said with your sixth child you were using crack cocaine.
Yeah.
Probably with the last three were using crack cocaine.
I did. The first three, I didn't use any drugs.
Right.
Well, when I say I didn't use any drug, that's a lie. This is the crazy bit. With my twins, with my first son, I used nothing. My twins, I used to drink Holston pills, because it says the sugar turns to alcohol. So I thought, well, I'm not putting in too much sugar. Anyway, that was that. But my last three, who are now 16, 13 and 10, I used with them. And my 16-year-old, I mean, I used, when I was pregnant with her, my house was actually a crack den.
Now, the question I have for you then is, how did that affect her?
Okay, I was quite lucky. I was quite lucky that all three of my children were born okay. They had no withdrawal symptoms. They were a bit small in weight. They didn't have the high-pitched screaming, the sneezing. They had no symptoms at all, you know. However, you know, I mean, my daughter, she's 16 now. I'm not sure whether the anger that she's got in her and some of the behavioural problems that I've experienced with them was to do with using during pregnancy, or my behaviours and my using whilst they were born, you know, because you've got to look at it like this, you know. I'm a parent, I've got 6 children. However, throughout my addiction, I didn't parent my children.
Right.
I didn't parent. I had to learn to be a parent. I didn't parent my children. You know, I didn't know my children. They didn't really know me. What they knew of me was this paranoid woman that was in and out of rooms. That's all they knew. You know, so there's going to be a lot of psychological and emotional problems with your children, and I don't think it's until you get yourself together and you sort your life out and you deal with yourself and your own issues that you can deal with theirs.
And let's talk about that. Because I think you're at the point now where we want to say that the shift needed to happen. From the addiction, just the shift needed to happen. What caused you to move away from your addiction?
Right. I had tried many times before to stop, and one of the things I tried was prayer. I'd pray, and I'd get on my hands and knees, and I'd cry, and I'd pray, you know. And when I prayed, it was usually at the wrong time. I usually prayed when all the drugs had gone, when I'd spent all the benefit money, you know, or when my life was at risk. Somebody was after me, I'd robbed somebody, and they were coming for me. Then I'd pray to God, you know. And what I realised back then was that something drastic had to happen. People talk about rock bottom, you know. So for me, basically, it was getting reported to social services, and they intervened in my family, and they had a lot of evidence, you know. Children weren't going to school, I wasn't cooperating with them, and my stepfather had reported me to social services. Even though he was actually smoking the crack with me. He reported me once I'd put him out, but that was okay. I thanked him for that. So they got involved in 2004 and took me to court, done all the court proceedings, and I was in denial, right? I was in denial, you know. I didn't have a drug problem, my kids were well looked after, and you have no right being in my life, you know. And they asked me to do a hair strand sample. And I was in so much denial. I said, yeah, okay, I'll give you a hair strand sample, you know. And my solicitor said to me, Sharon, if you're using, you need to let us know. Went to court, hair strand sample, come back high. It come back high. And it was a 3-day trial in court, and on the 3rd day, they told me that I had to hand my last 2 children. I was pregnant with the baby at this time. So I was about 6 weeks away from having my baby number 6. So the 3-year-old and the 6-year-old were removed. My 3 older children, they didn't really trouble them because they were just like, we're not going. But the 6-year-old and my 3-year-old were removed from my care. And my sister took them to social services because it was too painful for me to do that. So they went into care, and basically to get rid of the pain, I smoked more, and I smoked more. And it was at that point that I told my older children, even though I know they knew, I need to smoke this now, because I thought it was the only thing that was keeping me alive, you know. And then 6 weeks later, well, basically I took my children, and then 2 days later I lost my father. My father died. My father died 2 days later.
So a lot of loss at the same time.
And then 3 weeks later, I gave birth to baby number 6, a little girl, beautiful little girl. And I was in hospital. I stayed in hospital, and I said, I'm going to get clean. You know, this is it for me now. And then they called me and said I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital with the baby, that they had got an interim care order out, and they had got a foster carer, and they were coming for my baby.
Are you serious?
And she was 9 days old. So basically that morning I was breastfeeding my 9-day-old baby in my bed, and I was so happy, you know. I'd bought clothes for her, and I really wanted to change my life, you know. And they came with a car seat, and they said to me that I could come to Hornsey with them to drop the baby. So I said, okay. But what I'd done was, before that, I went straight to the off-licence across the road from St Mary's Hospital, and I bought a bottle of wine in my night clothes, and I drank the bottle of wine.
Goodness.
You know? And I can't really explain how I felt at that time. I don't think you can understand or even explain it, to be honest with you. It's just a void. Yeah. It's like someone's took your whole insides, like you're hollow. Yeah. There wasn't much feeling, if I'm honest, you know. And I drove to Hornsey, and I've met this foster carer. I've got my 9-day-old baby, and she was a beauty. And all I could say to the foster carer was, she likes lots of hugs, and she feeds every 4 hours. Wow. And I walked out of there, and I went home, and I sat down and I smoked £100 worth of crack. But the painful part of that as well was, while I was smoking the crack, my breasts were filling up with milk. Yes. It was feed time for a baby that I didn't have, Ray. And I think it was about 2 days after that, I started to pray. But I wasn't praying for crack. And I wasn't praying after I'd smoked the crack. I just prayed for help. I prayed for help. I prayed for happiness. You know, I prayed for love. And I prayed for guidance. Wow. And something happened, Ray. Wow. Oh my God. Come on. I woke up one morning, my body, I can feel it. Wow. Yes. I woke up one morning in the same clothes that I'd been sleeping in maybe for 2 or 3 days. You know, that was the norm for me. You know, I only got bathed when something special was going on. You know, that's my lifestyle. It was dirty. Yeah, nothing clean about it. And I woke up one morning, and I remember I had this brown tracksuit on, and I thought about this girl that I knew who had told me that she'd done residential, she'd done treatment. And she wasn't clean at the time. She's still, but I thought once again, oh well, you know, maybe I can do this. So I went to her house, and she gave me the phone number for substance misuse, and I called them. And they gave me an appointment, I think it was for 2 days later, at 9 o'clock in the morning. I never had no money. I was still using. But you know what, it was a different kind of using. I was using, and I wasn't getting paranoid. Because nothing was scaring me anymore. You prayed. You know, it was just gone. And I just knew that something, a miracle was going to happen.
Hallelujah.
And what happened was, basically, the morning for the interview, I walked from my house to Earls Court.
Goodness.
And I got there for 10 to 9 in the morning, because I was determined.
Wow.
I wanted my kids back, I wanted my life, and I wanted my dignity.
Yeah. Good word. Yes. And I went, and then they got me fast-tracked into a residential rehab. Excellent. And I went there, and I'd done a 6 months program. And that was at that point in my life that I believed there was a God. Because before that, I was angry with God. Sure. I was angry. He wasn't my friend. You've done this, you've done that. But then I realised where I was making the mistakes. And God had given me so many chances, and I hadn't taken them. But this one, I did. And from that day, I have prayed. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. I pray, and I pray, and I pray, and I pray. Because I don't feel that, for me, this is, without me praying, that my life will stay the way that it is. It's impossible. Because I know that what happened to me, it wasn't me on my own that has done this. Because I cannot be, you know, this woman who's neglected her children on a crack pipe every single day, till one day waking up and deciding that is it. Nah, it doesn't happen. But because I prayed, you know, today I pray to God, and I, you know, I don't always ask God for something. Today I pray and I thank Him. You know, I have to thank Him. I got clean. You know, this was 10 years ago, Ray. I got my children back. You know, and I had to learn to be a parent. You know, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. You know, I have 6 beautiful children. I have my grandchildren, and we are a family.
We are a family. However, there was difficult times.
Yeah.
There was very difficult times, like, whereas, you know, coming home to a family, I have to deal with so much stuff.
Yeah.
I have to deal with all the children, or their characteristics, or their demands. I have to deal with bills. You know, I have to be responsible.
Yeah.
I have to, you know, get this routine.
Yes.
I have to do shopping.
Yes.
And I have to pay for that shopping.
Yes, that's right.
So there were so many changes, but I welcome change.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And one of the things that I was scared of stopping was that if I stop using drugs, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
What friends am I going to have?
Yeah, talk about that, yeah.
What friends am I going to have? All my friends use drugs, you know? And then I joined the fellowship, NA fellowship. And I met friends.
Yeah.
I met family.
Yeah.
You know, I got a fantastic sponsor.
Yeah.
And these are people that when I went to this meeting and I heard these people talking and sharing my story, you know, once again, with the paranoia, I thought I'd been set up.
Yes.
But these people, they've walked my shoes.
Yes.
They know what I'm going through. They understand me. They're not going to judge me. And I go to meetings. I still do 3 to 4 meetings a week. And I'll go to a meeting and I will share whatever I want to share.
Yeah.
You know, I still have a bit of a mad head. You know, a couple of months ago, I watched this film. And the addict that I am, I really absorb stuff. I watched this film, and it was called Colombiana. And, you know, I actually believed that I could be an assassin and get away with it. You know, then I prayed for God to remove that, you know. And like I said, my life hasn't been great. But I'm able to wake up in the morning clean. I'm able to do things with my children, you know. I'm able to hold a constructive and productive conversation that doesn't include drugs or who's got the biggest rock. Them conversations don't go on no more. You know, I'm well respected. You know, I'm well loved. And I give those things back today. You know, but most of all, one of the biggest things that getting clean and having a connection with God was that I got back my self-respect. Because that goes, you know. I respect myself today, you know. I can go home and get in the shower and get into clean pajamas and get into a clean bed. I don't just slop asleep somewhere because I haven't slept for 2 and 3 days, because that is the behaviours and that is what I suffered throughout my using. I don't suffer today, and I wish never to suffer again.
Excellent, excellent. I don't even know how to recap what you just said, except to say that there is hope for anybody out there. And I think that's what I'm getting from your story. 21 years on alcohol, 14 years crack cocaine, using during the children, doing all manner of paranoia things in between. But yet, you're here today to say that there's dignity, self-respect, and of course your life has taken a path that is unbelievable. The children are doing well.
Fantastic.
And you look fantastic.
Thank you.
Almost as good as I am, but that's fine.
Wow.
But no, it's amazing. And like you said, it's only a miracle from God that can happen. The other thing I want to say, based upon what you said, is that, and this is so important, is that the need for fellowship and family. I know I walked into a 12-step meeting many a year ago, and I stood up and said, my name is Ray and I'm an addict. And what was powerful about that whole scenario was that, like you said, there were people there that walked in my shoes. I didn't feel any fear. I wasn't nervous. I just told my story, you know, and that's what was powerful for me. And there were those fellowships all around London. You know what is sad? Very few of them are church related. And you would have thought the first place you can come get some help is at a church. Right? Yeah. Not always so. But we're so glad you're here, Sharon. We've been joined by the other Sharon. And what I wanted Sharon to do, Sharon, say hi to our listeners and our viewers, is to share some information about addiction about drugs that are out there and that kind of things, so that if there are any parents listening, they would know what to look for, signs and symptoms and that kind of stuff. So far away.
But I've got some information that from Hope UK is a charity that actually tries to educate parents and children about the drugs and the prevention and what to look for. So there's a number of things to look for, you know, for example, changes in friends, changes in habits, having a lot more money than they normally have, smells, or trying to mask smells. It could be with mouthwash, it could be with, you know, extra deodorants, it could be, you know, more secretive. It could be, you know, even having sort of like drops in their eyes to sort of just make sure that, you know, the eyes are looking sort of bright and no, you know, not bloodshot or anything else. Missing of your prescription drugs. Things, you know, sort of household things that, you know, could be abused and used. You know, missing from the underneath the kitchen sink, or, you know, in their room or in their bags. There's a lot of things that parents can do to sort of support, and I think prevention is better than cure. So having some time, family time with your children, going out, talking to them, having a bond with them, so that before they fall into pitfalls, and temptations are everywhere, and the age we're living in, there's drugs everywhere. You don't know, you can't ever say my child would never do drugs, my child would never be exposed.
You know, hold on one second, and I want to big up that point you just made. I think it's so important that we say this. I get calls from many parents and emails and texts and stuff who act like their child is this child that should never get involved. And don't get me wrong, we all think our children are the best. The reality is that there is a devil, there is evil. Not only that, you said it, Sharon, and that is love and the needs. When needs are not met, there's many ways to meet a need.
Can I just add something as well? It's like, you know, as an addict, recovering addict myself, one of my downfalls and one of the things that held me back was a lot of shame and guilt. You know, and I think that's a lot for parents. You know, so there's parents out there who might have an inclination, maybe, that, let's say, for example, their son comes in from night and, you know, he's raiding the fridge. You know, their eating habits, or maybe they're not eating a lot, you know. And through the shame of a parent, how can I go and tell one of my friends that, you know what, I think my child's using drugs? The shame and the guilt, and, you know, but I think it's about, as a parent, talking from my own experience with my parents and with my children, is trying to give the love, like I said, and allowing or trying to at least get the relationship where your children can trust you. This is all about trust. So I'm going to trust my mum and tell my mum that I think I've got a drug addiction, or I might have an eating disorder, and my mum's going to support me. You know, it is about the trust.
And I'm glad you said that, because this is not only a drug issue. I say it all the time, drugs are symptoms. You know, eating disorders are symptoms. What we're dealing with addiction is dependency. It is losing control. And that's why I like the first step in the 12 steps. You know, I gotta admit that I'm powerless. You know, my life is unmanageable. Those things are so crucial and so important that people understand that. That even goes for people who sit in the church pew every week. That even goes for people that's struggling under debt and finances, because you know, money is the #1 addiction on the planet. And so we can't excuse anybody, and we can't overlook and say people look too holy or whatever it is. Brethren, there is a devil out there that's got a plan for everyone's life. The good news is, and I think this is where Sharon's story comes in, is that there's hope. There is hope. Sharon, tell us, I know you've dealt with the drug addictive world from the standpoint of education. Is there anything personal that you have dealt with that leads you to have a sensitive feel to someone who may be struggling out there from a standpoint that you never used drugs? Talk to us.
Well,
Fortunately, my mother, she had a real battle with alcohol. It could be other drugs, but at the time, I just grew up with her always abusing, and unfortunately, I lost my mom 2 years ago. But she had her, liver was I just could see all her organs failing. And there was, I remember when I was a teenager, I actually disowned her. There was a time I just couldn't stand her. She was always slumping. She was always, she couldn't hold up herself. It was almost like she was an embarrassment to me. And I wanted to disassociate myself from her. I wanted a different life. So I chose that I would never drink. Because she always had a Lucozade bottle, and I could never touch it because it wasn't Lucozade in it. It was always in her bag, and can I have a drink, Mum? No. And it didn't smell like that. So, I just didn't like the smell of alcohol, because every time I hugged her, it was this smell that I grew to hate. And so I went into trying to find out about it. And, the more I found out about drugs and alcohol, which is, smoking and alcohol is one of the biggest problems in our youth today. Is sometimes we always think about the hard drugs, but sometimes it just starts off like that. I just wanted to do more, to find out. The more I found out about it, the more I had sympathy for her. And I actually grew to love her. So before, I was able to allow her to get the help that she needed. So she went to rehab, she got clean. We built a relationship before she died. She got to know my children, and I started to love her again. So when she passed away, I didn't have that guilt on me that I didn't love her enough. I did everything I could to help, and she passed away wanting better for me and the next generation. But there's another thing that's so important, that as parents, we need to be, it's not what we say to our children, it's more like what we do, the role models that we set them. Are we drinking? Are we making the choice when we're with friends to have that alcohol-free drink, to not to be smoking in front of them, to give them, so they can see, well, you know what, Mum doesn't do that, or Dad doesn't do that. I don't have to just listen to my friends. I can see someone else who lives a different lifestyle and abstains from these things, and they're fine, they can manage. And because, it's important that children are seeing a different lifestyle, a different choice, us making the right choices as well.
We want to thank you both for sharing with us this evening. I want to mention to those who are looking and listening to the program, compulsive behavior is something that many of us have. Some of it is hereditary. We were born with it. It came down the line. And that means that we're susceptible to certain situations. So we can't put ourselves in every situation, because we never know. Some of us, we can plow ourselves into work and become workaholics. Some of us, we can plow ourselves into church and become churchaholics. Don't know Jesus, but go into church. But the fact is that we need to really know who we are through Christ, and that will give us what we need to continue to fight the good fight of faith. Let me also say, as we're winding down to end our program this evening, that if you'd like any information, if you're struggling out there with any type of addiction, feel free on the MediaNet Gospel site to leave your contact information. We'd be happy to get through to you and have a conversation and see how best we can help. Also, if you'd like to know anything further about the program tonight, I do have transcripts here that I can email to you, talking about the things that Sharon talked about what to look for, parents. If you have anybody in your life that's addicted, what to do, how to get help. Sharon, you were very interested in your stepdad calling Child Protective Services on you. And now you look back and you're thankful to God that got you where you got. So we're here to help on Religious Affair here on MediaNetGospel.com. We're here to help, and we're so happy that tonight Sharon and Sharon have showed up to help us and to steer us in that direction.
Good to see you.
Once again, we thank you for tuning in to Religious Affair, and we will see you on next Thursday here on this station at 8:30. On the 31st, we got a very serious topic coming with young people and it's called Let's Talk About Sex, Baby.
Okay.
We're going to talk about STIs. We're going to talk about the pressure of sexuality on the young people. Mark that date in your calendar. Get all your young people in front of your computer. We're better than EastEnders, Carnation Street, and Emmerdale put together every Thursday here on MediaNetGospel.com.